Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Mobrium webinar series. So we're super excited to have you. We're super excited to be with Amy Davies today. And we're going to jump right into this as soon as we can. Let me see if I can't switch this slide. Nice. Okay. So just to remind everyone, today's webinar is being recorded because we like to post the webinars for on-demand viewing on mobrium.com. So you can go to mobrium.com/libraries to see the Mobrium webinar library. That'll be today's webinar as well as the past webinars that we have done. Today's webinar will follow the same format as always, about 30 minutes of content and then a little Q&A session after. And we are going to turn the time right over to Matt, who's going to kind of give a brief intro about how we connected with Amy, and then we'll give her the time. So Matt, you want to take it away?
Yeah, so we met Amy actually in Las Vegas at the Epic HR conference. She was speaking there. She's a founder and author of 2 books and an incredible leader in the business space and in HR. We feel so honored that she's here. We actually joined her on one of her webinars, so I would definitely encourage you to check out the webinars at First30. They do lots of different great topics, so that's another one where you can get a lot of learning and insights. But yeah, we're so excited for her to be here and for you to learn from her. And thanks for joining us, Amy.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here, and I absolutely love this content. So I really love to share. I'm just getting my, if I sound choppy, it's because I'm getting my screen all set up. Technology, I tell you. Okay, I will get this all going. All right. Can everyone see my screen? You can't nod, you have to say yes. Can't see you.
Got it.
Okay,
Got it.
You can see it. Okay, great. So we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, all about how to build or revamp your employee onboarding program. Thanks, Matt, for introducing me. I just want to clarify that when Matt said epic, it wasn't like the conference was, of course, epic because Matt and I were both speaking there, but it wasn't like it was called EPIC, which was an acronym for something. So I always think that it's really funny, the name of the name of that session. It's very well named. It was a lot of fun, but it was the acronym for the actual session. So my background is I've written a book all about having a successful career in a reorg world where we're constantly losing and changing our jobs. I'm now writing my second book called What Employees Want. I do a lot of speaking engagements at conferences and in organizations. And I run a business called First30 very quickly. We help companies when they're going through layoffs. I know, and we also help with onboarding, but we help with layoffs. We help with something called outplacement. If you haven't heard of outplacement before, it's like career transition. When people need support because they've been laid off from one company, their employer will hire First30 to help that person recover and get back to meaningful work. There's many different areas of differentiation we have from our competitors. One big one for our clients is price point. And we have amazing quality services as well. And we just save our clients so much money working with us for a comparable, if not a better service. Our success rate is very high. So 90% of our participants are reemployed within 3 months. And we have a masterclass that we're going to be launching all about the topics we're talking about, much deeper with templates as well. So that's really First30 in a nutshell. You can always reach out to me if you have more questions, but I'm sure we want to get started with the content. So we're going to talk about 7 steps to onboarding success. Onboarding is one of those really interesting areas where it's like a big frustration point for businesses. It can be a frustration point for people leaders, for HR, but also for the people coming into the organization who are trying to make a really good impression. And some companies, without realizing it, can make that kind of difficult for employees. So there's so many ways that we can get started. And it's funny, I've worked with so many companies on their onboarding program, and what I found is it's like something they prioritize and then it gets deprioritized and prioritized and deprioritized again. And I do think that having a structured approach can very much help a company to can really help a company to get from end to end on this program. So the very first thing you want to do, I would say, that I recommend to people I work with who maybe don't want me to come in and rebuild the whole program for them, but really just want help understanding what to do next or where to start, is make the case for investment. And so what we recommend is the objective really is getting onboarding on the roadmap and ideally on the annual plan, so that there is kind of check-ins to make sure that it's going and it keeps going. Identifying senior sponsors of the program can be so helpful. Like a person on the senior leadership team who advocates for the program and helps kind of fight for resources for the program can be incredibly useful. Making onboarding part of someone's role. So if that's you really want to make sure that the organization realizes actually this is part of the scope of my work. And, come to conversations planfully. Do you think part of the problem with getting the onboarding program launched and sort of off the ground is that it's talked about in very vague ways? But I really like to help people who work with First30 make sure that they have a plan and they're kind of sticking to it and they're accountable for it. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. I'm happy to share this particular set of slides with you after, because I think it's really important to make the case. As I said, there's so many reasons to prioritize employee onboarding. People see it as like a nice to have, but in fact, it makes economic sense for a company. So research shows that 33% of new hires will quit within their first 6 months. That's a lot of turnover. And in fact, that we're realizing, especially in manufacturing type companies, because there has been recently so much competition for talent or for just people coming in the door, that employers are getting ghosted. So people don't even show up for their first day. We have a strategy. I'm not going to talk about it a lot today, but we do have a strategy for bringing down the number of ghosting and getting people in the job excited on their first day, and that's to launch a pre-boarding program. We don't have time to talk about everything today, so but that's something to definitely consider, getting employees excited before they even walk in. So it costs a lot of money to replace employees. This, I would say, is a minimum. And so if you lose 15 employees with a salary range of about $90,000, every organization's different, it's expensive, and relative investment in having even a resource like one of you to build the onboarding program is a lot less money than even losing one employee per year. So when I say that it makes economic sense, that's what I mean. And it's been proven to reduce the number of employees who will turn over. And so, yeah, it just, in my mind, it makes sense. The one thing that I always run into with clients is they don't seem to do a very good job of tracking their turnover numbers. Like, they don't quantify the loss that brings to the business. So that will be a very important one. So some of the benefits to investing in onboarding is that you see a boost in a new hire productivity. You see people who are more engaged. Like I said, it reduces turnover costs. So this part of the presentation is one I'm very happy to share because I really like to get our clients motivated to start getting going, whether they work with us or not. I just want to see them get going on this. So I say steal my slides, which you're welcome to do. So you just write to me and let me know you want to steal my slides. I'll give you my email address at the end. So the next phase, we've made the case. People are really feeling good. There's a lot more to that, obviously, but as a headline, it's like, first we want to make the case, then we want to help understand the current state, like what's going on right now, because that's going to inform what we do next. So we really want to gain a better understanding of what is working and what's not, because the worst thing we can do is try to fix something that isn't broken, right? So if there's aspects of the employee onboarding program, there seems to always be room for improvement. But if there are aspects that are working, we definitely want to make sure we stick to those. We want to also make sure that we are clarifying as part of this process the expectation of senior leaders. We want to conduct interviews Again, this is a topic I could even just talk a whole talk on, but I want to give you a great overview of the steps that I recommend taking. But I do think that doing research before, during, after you launch an employee onboarding program will really help. But you can get a little group together that's like your steering committee or your working group and get their feedback, because you want to make sure you're getting the feedback from people who are going to actually be leveraging the program, like people leaders, and also asking new hires about their experience. And then once we have our group, like this core group who are hopefully people leaders, that's definitely who we want in our core group of like a cross-functional team. Depends on how big your organization is. If it's a smaller organization, might just be you and a couple other people, but it could be a really large team across the country. So we want to engage this core group and get their feedback as we go through the different phases of the process, because again, they're going to be so much more excited about this program and utilize it if they've been engaged. Now, we want to do, like, I think this part is actually fun, is auditing our onboarding resources. So I found a mix of things with clients that I've worked with. One is that some companies have a ton of information. They have duplicated information. And then some companies have very little in terms of onboarding resources. And it's really about building those. So depending on what kind of organization you are, this is going to be a very, very different experience. But part of the session that I was just talking about previously is doing this gap analysis, doing this collaboration session. You should get that support from the team to understand what exists and how it's being used. So you want to go through all the resources, review them, and you want to look for gaps. And there's some kind of nice to have gaps, like about the brand. That's really important to have. Like, do people know your vision, mission, values? But then sometimes I find like mandatory training is missing, and that's really important. And that's going to differ state by state. So you're going to want to make sure that you have all your mandatory training. And one little kind of hack on mandatory training, there's often free versions of the training that you can get from government resources. So that's worth investigating. I never, ever like to advise businesses on what they should have in terms of mandatory training, because it's, like I said, very specific, and you would never want someone to feel like they've been led, the wrong way with that. So is there information new hires are seeking that's not included? One big miss that I find with onboarding resources is a lot of your suppliers, like if you have a benefit supplier, let's say, they probably have task-based videos where they're like, if you are filing your first benefit claim, click here, and those might even be on YouTube. So you could literally link those and send them in an email to new hires. And then they wouldn't have to go through the embarrassing experience of going to their manager and saying, hi, I'm just about to file my first benefits claim, or go to HR to do that. A lot of what I like to talk about when it comes to employee onboarding, giving HR a great initiative to work on in terms of the onboarding process, but then taking work away from HR, which is like all of these little questions that they're useful, like the person needs to ask these questions, but there's more important work that HR could be doing rather than fielding a ton of these questions when it would be such a simple solution to have it all sent out. Okay, so we always, again, want to circle back to that working group to see if anything's missing. So say we have a list, we know what we're looking for, keep checking in, because again, you're getting that buy-in, but you're also getting information from them. I don't know if you have any questions. I can't actually see you, I can only hear you, but if anyone has any questions, you can interrupt me as well. I should have said that at the beginning.
Hey, Amy, I have just one question. When you talk about auditing all of the resources, do you see a lot of companies that have like their onboarding packets in print form, like a physical handout, or a lot opting for like a digital onboarding packet that is a little easier to keep up to date as things change? Like, what do you recommend there?
I see a lot of both, and the reason is why. In fact, one of my clients is based in Wisconsin, in Ogden. And sorry, did I get that wrong? Where's Ogden? It's near you, isn't it,
There's
Matt?
an Ogden in Utah. There may be an Ogden somewhere else.
Utah. Sorry. My mistake. My geography is a bit off there. So we have a client in Utah, and they have people who are working in their manufacturing site, and then they have people who are working at a desk most of the time. So then they need paper copies for their people who are onboarding from manufacturing, and then because they're not always going to get the emails, right? So I do see a bit of both. I think most businesses, their ideal scenario is to have everything in a system like on their HRIS, and I'm going to talk about that, or an LMS to distribute to employees, and to have a intranet site where they house all of their employee onboarding materials. I think that's fantastic for people who typically work at a desk. I think it becomes very difficult for your frontline folks to access some of that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think the combination of both of those makes a lot of sense. And maybe I would just say on the print ones, if you have right at the top, like updated as of whatever date, just so like someone receiving it would see. But yeah, I think that's some great advice.
Yeah, that it's current. It's funny because I was actually just speaking to a client today about this. They said to me initially, we want to create the same experience for our manufacturing as our office staff. And I said, I know that you do, but I think that's a miss actually, because they're very different, right? They're so different that you can give them a lot of the same materials. And of course, they're going to be learning the same vision, mission, and values. But to try to get everyone on the same mission, like with the same type of training, I don't think it's helpful to anybody, even though I think the intent behind that rationale is very, very good. And then we want to create and refresh resources. And there's just so many best practices in my mind to creating and refreshing resources. I know, Matt, when you and I did the podcast together, I talked about consistency, and from both consistency and familiarity actually breed trust, right? And one of the things that I find when I see resources for employee onboarding programs is you have some that look like they were created in the 1990s. Then some look fresher, and then some have an old logo for the company. Some have a new logo. Some are in one font, some are in another. There's different colors everywhere. So we want to make sure that we're looking at our resources in such a way that we're thinking, what is going to make someone feel like they trust us? And consistency, again, makes people cognitively, it registers for us in a positive way. And I know I didn't talk about this right at the beginning, but I often will talk when I speak to people about employee onboarding, the imprinting experience that we have when we engage with a new stimulus or new person or a new place, or a new employer, right? So Matt and I, when we first met at the conference, we had a great first meeting. We were both speaking at this conference, so we got to learn each other's expertise. We had a really good conversation. Matt gave me a copy of his book, which is fantastic, by the way. So I had a very positive experience and look at the relationship we've built on that foundation. And then I was on the podcast with him and his wife, Krista. So it was like a positive to positive to positive. It would be really hard right now. I wouldn't listen to you if you said something negative. I mean, you could say something negative, not that you ever would, but if someone came to me and said, Matt he's not a great business person. And I would say, absolutely, you're wrong. Because my foundation, I've imprinted and built this belief system of positive interaction, right? So that's what we want to do for our employees. Because cognitively, if they imprint and their imprint about us isn't positive, they build a negative belief system about us. And once that is established, it can be very difficult to change. So yeah, they may never leave us as an employer, maybe not now, especially because there's a lot of it's kind of, there's a lot of concern among employees about leaving. It's not enough for an employee to want to stay. You want them to be engaged, right? So even in times when things may be more difficult to find new jobs, we want the people who are there to be, especially then, to be feeling as positively as possible and as productive as possible, because we might have less resources to do the same amount of work. So when it comes to creating and refreshing resources, you want to look at your resources and take stock, right? See what is being repeated. You want the same consistent experience, even though it may not be delivered in the same way. You do want people to feel like there is some cohesion across the business. Accurately and consistently branded. What I said, sometimes we're working with old branding on documents. That happens more and more these days because companies seem to refresh their branding more often. Like I said, current look and feel, that includes the same font. If you looked at my presentation today and it was messy and there was different fonts everywhere and it looked like I used pick art from these little things from, again, the 1990s, are you really going to want to work with me? Are you really going to trust that I'm going to build a beautiful employee onboarding program for you? Probably not. In the same way that your employees are going to look at this information and build confidence with you, or maybe they're going to lose confidence in you. And then you just want to make sure they're all up to date and include the latest information. I would highly recommend ensuring a manager guide as part of the resources that you're creating. Our managers are really going to help us activate whatever program we create or that is refreshed. So having that for them is a really great idea as well. We have a manager guide that some of our clients will purchase as a foundation because it talks a lot about why employee onboarding matters, takes them through the different steps of how to engage their new hire. But I really think some of our clients will take it and adapt it for themselves. I don't think we should just be taken and always just used. It can be used as a quick win, but then I think that clients should really put their own materials in that manager guide that are specific to their program. That's kind of what that looks like. Okay, so then you were talking, Matt, before about how the different ways in which client or companies will make the resources available to their team. And this is a really funny one. I can't see you. I wish I could, so you could tell me if you have an HRIS or an LMS in your company. And so I hate to use acronyms and not explain them. The human resources, now I'm going to get it wrong. Human resources information system and your learning management system. So your HRIS and your LMS. And people are always thinking when they get an HRIS, they implement an HRIS or they have one that has an onboarding module, they're always like, oh my goodness, we've solved the problem. We have an onboarding module now. Here's the problem with that. Those systems were not built to be employee onboarding systems, and you still know how to you need to know how to utilize them in such a way that you can launch this program on that system in a way that is actually meaningful and kind of drips out the information and doesn't sort of, I always say onboarding should not be an avalanche of information. It should be a babbling brook. But do you know how to use that system to make it so? And the problem is, like I said, these HRIS, they were built for a greater purpose and they do really great things solving the problems they were designed to solve. They weren't designed as employee onboarding programs. So that module is probably going to be no more than a checklist. So unfortunately, it's not the mecca that we might hope. Some are better than others, but that's one of the things that I tell clients, like, don't have too high expectations of what can be delivered. An LMS should be closer to what you're looking for. But again, it's all about who's driving, like who's using that system. And some are more complicated than others. Some have the right kind of features you're going to need and some won't. So that's something to consider. But there's so many different options. Again, I can't go into all of them here because we don't have enough time, but one of the things that I really recommend to clients, and I sort of help them set up sometimes, is email sequencing. So do you have a solution you can use? And by email sequencing, Matt and I probably use this all the time for our mailing lists, but you can set up a sequenced email. So on this date, you get this email. On this date, you get this. It's all pre-populated. All I have to do is put your email address in it and your name, and then it's going to send you on like on the right day. It will send you the materials that you need. Very few HR departments use this tool. So if you are, that's amazing. It's not commonly used by HR departments, but I'm hoping that I'll spread the word and people will start using these systems more, because it can help you so much. So that's one gap that you could fill using an email sequencing tool. So you have email by email, welcome to the business, about our brand, take your safety training, like on different days, and links to like clickable links to wherever they need to go. I know that's a lot of information all at one time there. And I'm talking quickly. Hopefully you can watch the replay, but there is, it's a really great way to get you started with housing your materials, and simple. Yes, what I was saying, that's my pro tip. I gave it away. Spoiler, I should have said spoiler alert. Okay. So then we have this great program that we've built, or we refreshed. One of the things that I see companies miss a little bit is they don't tell anyone. Like they build it and new hires are getting to experience aspects of it, but because it's not communicated to the business, especially to the people leaders, a lot of pieces go missing or don't get activated because no one's aware that it's happening. And I do a lot of the marketing for First30. And what I find is you can tell people the same thing again and again, and they don't see it because we're so distracted, right? So having a comms campaign where you're repeating, like you keep reminding them the date that it's going to launch, how it's going to be used, here are the materials you need. Don't be afraid to keep saying the same thing over and over again, because you'll be surprised how often people will miss the information the first time. So you want to create company-wide communications and a plan for people managers. This is another funny one. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago about their program, and they told me that manager training was optional for their employee onboarding program. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a problem, right? Because your managers, they really need to be part of this process. Like that has to be mandatory training. And that's why I'll go back to my point right from the beginning, is having senior sponsorship. And when I think of senior sponsorship, the people I'm looking at are potentially, depending on the size of your business. So your smaller business, that might be easy. It might be your founder or your CEO. If you're working for a larger business, maybe it's someone in the C-suite. Maybe it's your chief. Well, first of all, it might be your HRIO, or sorry. Yes, your CHRO. So many acronyms. Your chief HR officer. And then if not, maybe you have a team that has high turnover, like marketing teams often have high turnover. So I say, talk to your marketing leaders, because they might be invested, and they might even help you build some aspects of the program. They specialize in running marketing campaigns. That's email sequencing. So you might have tools that they already have that you can use. The other team I tell people to look at is your sales leaders, because sales leaders are highly incentivized to get the people on their team working at full capacity as quickly as possible. So they, and they're great salespeople. So they'll help you sell in all of what you need and get you the funding or the budget you need to keep going. So again, getting communications out to the organization can have a lot of red tape. So that's why I'm bringing up that senior sponsor again, because that's something your senior sponsor can help you get going even more. So you want to send out messages well before the program is launched. I'm going to tell you a personal story. When I launched First30, I was building First30 for almost a year before I launched it. because our outplacement program, we actually built a platform where it looks beautiful. That's where we house all of our courses now. So it's really done great for us. However, I did not start really talking about what we were doing until we launched, which was the silliest thing that I ever did, because I missed all of that lead up time where people could have, it takes a long time for people to pick up on these sorts of things. So giving yourself a few months and starting to communicate your plan is a really good idea, and one that I wish that I thought about like 6 years ago before I started First30, which is silly of me. I don't know what was going on because I'm a marketer by training, but even the people closest to these things sometimes don't see what they're doing wrong. So that's what I would say is get in early, send messages before the program is launched, and then continue to send messages leading up to the launch, during the launch, after the launch, because you want them to keep utilizing it. People don't hire on their team every day. And then engaging again when you know a people leader is hiring. I think one thing with HR is because you're dealing with new hires a lot more, we forget that some of our people leaders, they might not have onboarded someone ever, or they might not have onboarded someone for years. So keeping them up to date on what your program offers is always very helpful. Like I said, you can use your marketing, collaborate with your marketing leaders as advocates and sponsors for the program, but you can also get your marketing team or your corporate communications team, if you have a really big team, to help you with these campaigns, to help you understand what tools that you already have access to that might help you with some of the challenges or some of the opportunities for employee onboarding. This is the last one, number 7, collect feedback and continue to refresh. Okay, I talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but I'm going to reinforce one thing. You're doing a lot of work on your employee onboarding program. Once that program launches, I'm going to tell you another little secret. Even just having something in place that's somewhat structured for new hires that isn't perfect is going to make them imprint more positively. Okay, so it's when a company has no plan for a new hire, people start to feel very unsettled when they get there. So even if a few little quick wins, starting with pre-boarding, having a buddy program where if someone checks in with them before they start and then is kind of their coach once they get there, those sorts of things can make a huge difference. Even small changes that you're making can make a big difference. So running an employee survey or new hire survey with the people who have been there for the last like maybe 2 years, they've been there, ask them what their onboarding experience was like. I put a set of questions. I have put these surveys in the course that we're just about to launch, but because of my background is in market research. So I used to do and employee research. So asking the same questions again and again over time will allow you to do what's called benchmarking. So you have a place to compare to. And so over the years, as your improvements take effect, or even over months, you'll be able to demonstrate to the business, look where we were with satisfaction and look where we are. And it's going to be a great news story for you. So I really recommend that HR teams who are making changes to their employee onboarding program do the research early and then keep doing it again so you can point to the improvements, because 100% there's going to be an improvement in satisfaction, even if you make small changes, and I want you to get credit for that. Then include opportunities for feedback throughout. You want to also do these surveys with managers too, because they're going to be happier because there's going to be a better system in place. And then the other thing you can do is track new hire retention before and after the program launch. So that can be, and then you can quantify it in the same way I did with those slides. You can say, we were losing 10 new hires in 6 months. Now we're only losing 4 or 5. There's always going to be some that are going to leave. It's not going to be the right fit. And this is how much we've saved the business. I want you to get credit for that. Yes, so you'll look like a hero. And I do think that's really important because HR takes on a lot, and I don't think they get credit for enough. And I never like when you miss an opportunity to get that credit. Okay, that's my presentation. I'll just very quickly tell you a few little things that are going on. We do have a course launching what takes everything that I've just shared with you. There's templates, there's all kinds of that survey that I told you about. It's all there in this program. So if you're interested in that program, let me know you were here. And I will give you a discount code for that as well. Once it launches, it will be launched within the next 3 weeks. So if it's something you're interested in, that's great. If not, no problem at all. You can also reach out to me for those making the case presentation. I call it steal my slides. If you want to steal that set of slides, I'm happy to send those to you. And you can take them and rebrand them, do whatever you want. I think that will be really helpful if you are personally looking to get the attention of people in your organization. Say, hey, I think we need to do this. It will give you and here's why. Because I think that there's this belief that people just love working on onboarding programs. I think that, HR likes working on onboarding programs because they know the difference they make, but sometimes they don't know how to communicate what that difference is in a way that a CFO will sign off on it, for instance. And that is it. So you have my email and you're welcome to connect with me. I'm going to stop sharing because maybe, there, can you see me now? Okay. Whew, I feel like that was a lot. That was a marathon. I'm going to be honest with you about one thing. When I saw the timing, I thought we had until 2, and then I was like, oh my gosh, 1:45. Or sorry, 11:45 for you. I'm gonna move. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, or Matt, if there's something you wanted to put up.
I actually have a quick question for you, Amy.
Yeah.
As you were talking, you might have covered this and I wasn't listening well, but I remember you said that you recommend the Battling Brook course of onboarding instead of like either the avalanche or just like the checklist approach. And I was wondering what your reasoning is behind that, why you've seen the Battling Brook, drip system be more effective.
Yeah, because our memories are fragile at any time. So if you think of when you're entering a new organization, you're nervous, you're getting a ton of information, you're seeing a lot of new things, like you're in a new location or meeting a new team, then you're faced with tons of information, anywhere from here's our safety training to here's your benefits information to here's our mission, vision, values. And there's not a piece of that you're going to remember easily. You might be able to pick out 1 or 2 nuggets, but even just think of this presentation that I just gave, right? I did give you a lot of information at one time. It's great that Matt has a replay because you're probably going to be like, wow, that's a lot of information at one time. I need to go back and refresh. And if it was served up bit by bit, that's part of the reason we're doing the course, and it's a lot more detailed, but bit by bit, then it would be a lot easier to retain that information. So you don't want people feeling overwhelmed. One of the funny things that I always tell clients to do, if they can, let your new hire start a little late on their first day and leave a little early. You're never getting a lot out of them on that day, right? And they will say to themselves, oh, my employer gets this. They get us.
Yeah, I love that. I think, the first day tip, that just feels a little bit more caring for the individual. And I was curious on the email sequencing, and Amy, this is for you or anyone else on the group, if there are tools that you've used. Like we've used different tools like HubSpot and GrowBots for doing email sequences, and that's mostly for like sales outreach, but perhaps an HRIS system has the ability to schedule an email sequence where it's like, here's your day 1 email and your 3-day check-in and your 1-week check-in and your 1-month check-in, like that type of a thing. Just wondering if anybody has used any specific tools.
If no one has, and you don't have an HRIS that you can utilize for this purpose, and I'm not sure what the capabilities are with that. They're all different, right? So I don't know. I love an organization called KIT.com. And I find it's so simple to put together an email sequence. You just have to work with, if you have a larger company and you have firewalls, you just want to work with your IT department to get their help, just helping you make sure that they have the best possible chance of getting to your employee. That's all. But I would check out kit.com. I've used a number. I've used HubSpot as well, Matt. The one that I recommend for clients' internal communications with employees is Kit.
Okay, sweet. That's awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Mm-hmm. But check with your marketing team and tell them what you're trying to do. That should be their expertise, or your sales team as well. More so marketing, sometimes sales.
Definitely. Well, thanks. Thank you so much for sharing all your expertise today, Amy.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you're so welcome.
We have a few
Go ahead.
minutes, and so just want to open up to anyone. If there are any questions for Amy, we have the expert right here with us. So make sure to take advantage of her knowledge if anyone has something they'd like to ask her.
Well, Matt, you're welcome to share my email with everybody. You're welcome to reach out to me. And honestly, no pressure to take our course or anything like that. You'll have the information, but if you just want that slide deck, no problem at all. Just let me know and I'll send you those making case for the investment slides as well so that you can utilize them.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry. This is Susan. I had one question. I wanted to know if what type of recording, or do you do recordings for videos for some of the new hires? And if so, what software do you use?
Yeah. So do you mean like recordings, like training recording? Like if I'm like this webinar, right? Something like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I use a platform called Riverside, which does higher quality recordings, more so than maybe this. I don't know, Matt, what you're using right now, but it looks really good. I don't know what the recording quality is. So I know the recording quality. I have a podcast as well. And so I use it for that too. And I love the recording quality for it. But I work with a company called Storyfora. And if I'm doing like training video content, I'll use them to work with to do professionally polished resources for clients. So you're welcome to reach out to me if you want any more of that information. But Riverside does pretty good recordings.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I like your thought. I'm thinking where you're going with this is like, could you do any pre-recorded for your employees? And I think that's a really good idea. The one thing I would say is if you share pre-recorded, it's good because you have more energy, but maybe you can even have someone in HR in the chat while they're watching the recording. So if they can chat their questions to you during the recording as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Susan. Thanks for voicing that. We understand that everyone has a busy day, so we want to try and be punctual with our closings. We can give your time back to you. Really want to thank Amy for being here and sharing so much expertise with us. At Mobrium, we have found that the best companion to a strong onboarding process is a strong reputation. So as we are the reputation experts, we'll be sending you guys a link where we can go through your reputation for free for you. It's just going to be part of this big conglomeration of things you'll get in your follow-up email. So make sure to watch that follow-up email. It'll also have the link for next month's webinar, which is all about how to win Best Place to Work awards. They're a lot more within reach than you would think, and they have a huge impact on company culture, a huge impact on hiring and retention, and we're going to get all of the good tips from Matt next month. So watch for that registration, and we will see you guys next month. Thanks for being here.